Sibling relocated celebration, my child's memorial. Deemed his passing insignificant incident, and folks supported him. However, they overlooked I possessed the residence. He scheduled the gathering. Thus, he's due for astonishment. Initially, I grasped kin disregarded me. Was moment my offspring diagnosed leukemia. It wasn't anything expressed directly. Naturally, it wasn't similar to my dad. Robert and stepmother Linda contacted stated, "We are apathetic, Jonathan." No, which would have been excessively truthful for individuals. Alternatively, it was their quietness that resonated. Their non-attendance, how they never inquired about Alex's well-being, never provided assistance, never even feigned concern. I was overwhelmed with medical expenses, toiling late evenings simply to maintain utilities. And yet, when stepbrother Mark phoned, it wasn't to inquire regarding Alex. It was to request funds slightly insufficient for lease currently. John, he would utter, as if he hadn't spoken identical thing previously, prior month and period preceding, and period prior to specific. I settled naturally, since I consistently did, because Mark hadn't mastered self-sufficiency, and I had devoted my whole existence. Informed it was my duty to support him. It had persisted thusly for ages. Since Mark reached adulthood, determined employment was beneath him. Dad transferred his weight upon myself. "You're the dependable individual," he would remark. "You're individual possessing composed life." Ironically, I lacked composed existence whatsoever. I was barely enduring. I had been wedded previously. Seemed lifetime past currently. Back I possessed aspirations. Residence with garden, unified household. Existence felt complete, however, ultimately. All I received was separation and complete custody. Ailing child. My former spouse, Rachel, was an unpleasant individual. She simply lacked strength this existence. She departed when Alex was 5. Her words still resonated. "I am unable," continued John. "I adore him, but I cannot witness him endure. I cannot reside within healthcare facilities. I cannot awaken each daybreak, questioning whether today marks losing my offspring, as if I possessed option, as though I hadn't awakened each morn with identical dread, constricting my esophagus." Rachel wed again. She relocated to different municipality, initiated fresh existence, bore another offspring, and Alex, he never inquired about her. I believe, even at age 5, he grasped his mother opted to depart, and he comprehended I never would. Sole positive outcome, recent years, was bequest from my grandparents. The residence I matured in. The petite leased flat yielded consistent revenue, and lately the seaside dwelling. Final item, grandmother bequeathed before passing. I recall seated attorney office, gazing documents, too fatigued to comprehend. The dwelling was antiquated, required repairs, but it was mine, another safeguard for Alex. Or at least that's what I presumed. The instant my father and Linda discovered the house, everything shifted. Mark requires it more than you. Linda uttered the moment I referenced the inheritance. He lacks permanent residence. It's unjust for one child to possess so much, while the other has nothing. I nearly chuckled at that, not due to humor, but due to the sheer audacity. "You mean sibling I've been covering rent for? The one who declines employment." That Mark Linda's mouth compressed. He's enduring difficult period. He's endured difficult period for 15 years. You don't even require it, John. My father interjected, "You already possess your residence. You're leasing revenue, you're thriving." He desired toil, he wasn't thriving. I was barely enduring each day. I was witnessing my son battling for his existence, attending chemotherapy treatments, gripping his hand while he wept in agony. And these individuals, my relatives, believed I possessed excessive. "You don't comprehend my life." I stated, my tone frigid. "And if you believe I'm granting Mark a residence, when I can scarcely manage my son's medical expenses, you're delusional." Mark wasn't even discreet. "Cease it, John. Don't be egotistical. You possess everything. I possess nothing. You possess nothing because you decline to labor for anything." His expression contorted hideous grimace. "You consistently believe you're superior me, don't you?" I exhaled gradually. Clenching my fists, "I believe I'm weary, Mark. Fatigued, supporting you, burden treated like cash machine. Weary being sole individual, this household. Who cares about anybody? Except himself, my father sighed theatrically, massaging his temples as if I was problematic. Simply contemplated John. And since I felt depleted, because I lacked vigor, another altercation. I pondered it, and ultimately I consented. I acquiesced, allowing Mark reside house, but I never transferred ownership. I should have realized it wouldn't conclude there. They perpetually desired more even when I struggled, even when I forfeited most crucial thing in my life. My kin still solely cared what I could provide them. Alex perished Thursday morning. I recall embracing in my arms, his tiny hand grasping mine, his respiration faint, shallow. He had battled valiantly, exceeding physicians' expectations, and then abruptly he vanished. I don't recall much subsequent days. I hardly slumbered, I scarcely consumed. The world became hazy condolences paperwork, burial preparations, but I recollect contacting my father. I recollect informing him the service was Saturday. I recollect the pause before he uttered. Oh, he stated, "That's unfortunate, Mark's hosting housewarming gathering that day." I believed I misheard him. What Linda already formulated arrangements. He proceeded, "We deemed best support Mark presently." You comprehend, I disconnected the phone, never conversed him again. It was my relative Nick who informed me what transpired subsequently. Mark had organized gathering my residence. Welcome companions played melodies. Imbibe chuckled while I interred my son. My sibling was rejoicing. He was slandering you, Nick said, hesitating as if uncertain whether he should inform me, labeling you failure, claiming you relinquished everything received, nothing reciprocation. I didn't reply. I simply arose, retrieved my coat, drove directly police precinct, because here was crucial matter. Mark overlooked residence wasn't his possession. It had never belonged him when arrived station. My palm steady, my pulse normal. I wasn't doubting, questioning myself. Instead, I experienced peculiar tranquility, serenity. Receptionist barely glanced up as I neared. "May I assist you?" Affirmative. I stated, presenting ownership papers counter. "I must inform encroachment intrusion." Law enforcement responded swiftly, rapidly exceeding expectations. By my arrival back residence that evening, my cellular device overwhelmed communication father. From Linda, including Mark. I ignored ringing, aloud, shouting, emptiness. Their pronouncements accumulating successively. "Father, what troubles you?" "You alerted authorities regarding sibling." "Linda, your behavior utterly irrational. We require dialogue, Mark." "You believe permissible actions towards." "You shall lament this, John." I vowed deity. I remained silent. I simply resided, dark, quietude, living area, gazing wall, attempting experience emotion. I anticipated removing Mark would resemble triumph, like recovering possession stolen. However, I solely sense hollowness because insignificance. Alex departed. I possessed no remaining spirit. Subsequent daybreak, father appeared residence. I ought anticipated it. I barely unlatched entrance prior forceful entry, forcefully closing it behind. He appeared, enraged, jaw tightened, eyes blazing, barely suppressed fury. What contemplated, he demanded. I exhaled, gradually massaging temples. "Father, I lack vigor currently." "You lack vigor," he echoed, voice laced mockery. Then explained, contacting authorities regarding sibling. I gazed him, my countenance neutral because he intruded unlawfully. "He residing there, John." "You permitted relocation." "I never officially transferred residence." I stated, plainly irrelevant. He retorted, it constituted spoken accord. Comprehend mortification. Grasp consequences actions. I folded arms. "Oh, my apologies. Did I humiliate you before your favored offspring?" His expression darkened. "Observe your demeanor. No, you monitor your attitude." I stated, my tone sharpened. "Since you present my residence shouting at me, when you ought to be expressing remorse." Expressing regret, he emitted bitter chuckle. "For what? For selecting blasted celebration over your grandson's memorial." I declared coldly, that silenced him. Initially, his fury faltered, grappled with Linda's words. I snapped at feigning maturity. "Have it a labor, first time ever." She exhaled gradually, slowly. "I understand your frustration, Jonathan." "No," I countered, stated. "You're unaware, because if you were, you wouldn't contact me to reprimand me regarding the thief, while I mourn my offspring." She became silent momentarily. I believed she might cease. But then she uttered, "This isn't grandmother's desire." I chuckled, not due humor. Due its utter, pathetic nature. Grandmother bequeathed the residence to me. I stated, "You want to discuss her wishes." She would have desired Mark to become responsible and cease expecting me to resolve his issues. Linda sked disapprovingly. "You're displaying cruelty, Jonathan." "No," I replied. "Am finally being equitable." Then I disconnected. Mark remained silent briefly. A week post-eviction, he texted me, "Mark, you'll lament this action." I scoffed, disregarded it. Then, subsequently, Mark, "You're indebted to me, John." Then next, Mark, "If I can't possess the residence." Nobody can. That gave me pause. I gazed at the displayed words. A gradual unease settled within me. I knew Mark was parasitic, deceitful, a manipulator, but this felt distinct. And when I reviewed the security recordings that evening, I discovered the reason for the footage's lack of clarity. But it sufficed to observe Mark. Sufficed to witness the bludgeon. Sufficed to observe him shattering the panes, demolishing the walls, destroying my inherited residence. The residence belonging to me, I observed silently. My chest constricted, my hands trembling. And then gradually I retrieved my phone. I dialed emergency services. "What's the crisis?" I exhaled. "My sibling just vandalized my residence," I stated, voice composed. "And I possess video evidence." Mark apprehended that evening. I avoided precinct. Ignored calls, disregarded Linda messages 3 a.m. with frantic message. "How could you betray sibling?" I sat living room, observing surveillance repeatedly, witnessing him demolish another's belongings, observing him using grandmother's windows, her walls, her flooring. The residence, she cherished, the home, she entrusted me, and I experienced nothingness, no rage, no sorrow, not even contentment. Simply void, like I depleted emotions. Following morning, Nick called. "Dude," he uttered, voice still sleepy. I learned what occurred. I sighed, rubbing nose bridge. Mark wrecked residence, impossible. He sounded astonished, I thought. I understood he was angry, but gosh. He actually committed. I possess video recording. Nick whistled softly. "He's doomed indeed," I stated, monotonous voice. He was there with silence. Then, tentatively, Nick inquired. "Are you all right?" I reacted to the question. Nobody inquired that long ago. Not after Alex became unwell, not after his passing, not following Mark theft, after paternal desertion, after Linda attempted guilt manipulation. Nobody asked, and honestly I was unsure. "I don't know," I confessed. Nick remained silent briefly, then suggested drinks. It was 10 a.m., yet I nearly agreed. Legal proceedings progressed quicker anticipated, perhaps due irrefutable evidence. Perhaps because Mark lacked funds, competent attorney. Regardless, within weeks, he was formally accused vandalism, property damage. Linda contacted me same day. "Jonathan," she stated, voice tight, "I trust you're pleased. You have destroyed brother's existence." I gazed my phone, questioning her audacity utter those words. "Linda," I responded, my voice almost apathetic, "Mark destroyed his existence." She sneered, "You genuinely lack concern." "Do you?" I contemplated that, then replied negatively. "I don't." I disconnected before she could answer. And initially in my lifetime, I lacked remorse about it. Mark forfeited his employment, not significant employment initially. He labored part-time at certain storage facility, barely attending on favorable days. Nevertheless, he forfeited it. Evidently, criminal accusations weren't positive image employee. Linda implored me to abandon the lawsuit. Father contacted twice. Desires demand I rectify this predicament. Desires state Mark lacked intention. I disregarded them both ultimately. This wasn't solely about the residents. It concerned everything, concerned years of exploitation. Being controlled, being compelled, feel I owed family everything, while they provided me nothing reciprocally. It concerned Alex, about how my father prioritized Mark's celebration over son's burial. It concerned finally comprehending these individuals, the individuals I devoted my entire existence attempting satisfy, would never cherish me the manner I desired. And I was finished attempting. Mark confessed guilt. I didn't attend the hearing. didn't need to the magistrate sentenced him probation, public service, and compensation charges, which meant initially in his existence. Mark had a labor, not that he accepted it positively. Mark, you believe you triumphed. Mark, you believe this concluded Mark. I vow, John, you'll lament this. I obstructed his contact. And then ultimately, I severed the final remaining connection. I visited the bank, terminated the shared account. My father deceived me into establishing years prior and eliminated my name from anything associated with him. Linda or Mark, no more familial crisis withdrawals. No more outstanding liabilities in my identity. No more monetary lifeline. And abruptly, they were autonomous. Father contacted 3 days subsequently. I answered not due to desire, due to wanting to hear what he would utter. When he realized I wasn't his personal cash dispenser anymore. Johnny commenced. Voice atypically tranquil. I just verified the account. It's terminated. I stated, interrupting him. Prolonged silence, then abrupt inhalation. You shut it. Affirmative. I confirm my action. His tone grew somber. Your problem. I nearly chuckled naturally. That was his reaction. No apologies. No comprehension, no paternal responsibility acknowledgement. Simply rage, pure entitlement. You genuinely clueless, are you? I stated while shaking head. You treated me insignificantly my whole existence. My value solely based my contributions to you. Now that I cease providing, you behave as if I betrayed you. You have indeed betrayed me, he retorted. I exhaled slowly, then spoke softly. No, Father. You betrayed me initially. He remained speechless. I terminated call, never responded again. 1 month passed, then 2. Then 3, I vacated old residence, sold the impaired estate, leased apartment, severed ties with father. Linda, Mark, everyone. For the first time within memory, I felt liberated, not joyful. Not quite yet, but emancipated. Perhaps possibly. That sufficed. The quiet was eerie. First time ever. My phone wasn't vibrating with requests. No more paternal calls. No more manipulative texts from Linda. No more irate messages from Mark. Initially, it felt peculiar, like anticipating impending doom. But weeks later, something internally transformed. My sleep improved significantly. I wasn't perpetually anxious about unforeseen costs. I could respire fully yet. I still faltered whenever my phone illuminated, partially anticipating another catastrophe. But the calls remained absent, because they finally understood I wasn't their burden. Mark naturally attempted to reclaim me. It began with trivial vengeance. He disseminated falsehoods to relatives, manipulating narrative to portray himself victim. Mark John pilfered residence from me. He deceived grandmother into bequeathing everything. Mark, I was entitled to my portion. He became avaricious, evicted me. Mark, currently I possess nothing. He's occupying 3 estates, living lavishly. Several relatives believed the melodrama. An aunt contacted me, her tone dripping insincere courtesy, stating, Jonathan, dear, aren't you perhaps excessively severe? Mark, enduring hardship. Relatives should assist one another. I allowed her conclude, then responded. Did he inform you he damaged the resident's quiet? Did he reference law enforcement? The accusations, further silence. Then ultimately hesitant, well, negative. Perhaps you should inquire him before admonishing me. I disconnected without monetary assistance. Reality struck Mark swiftly. His parole mandated employment. He couldn't continue alternating between gigs, pretexts. He possessed 0 funds, 0 contingency. Initially in his existence, nobody was rescuing him. I learned through Nick he rented small, dilapidated flat, undesirable neighborhood. Linda, my father, didn't shelter him. Seemingly, they weren't charitable towards their favored offspring. The incongruity was almost comical. Years they guilt me into supporting Mark, portraying him as incapacitated. When I finally departed, they deserted him equally rapidly. Deeply, they never genuinely cared for him. Journeyed initially after many years. I reconnected with former companion, a lady I encountered during university. But connection lost when existence interfered, and gradually, agonizingly, I began recovering, not solely kin. From losing Alex from years spent self-sacrificing. For individuals apathetic, uncaring. One evening months following conclusion, I received message from Nick. Hey, simply wanted to express my pride in you. I understand it wasn't simple, but you chose correctly. I contemplated the communication extensively, and initially after extended period, I allowed myself acceptance. I never interacted with father again. Not straightforwardly, minimally. Nick informed me he still spoke of me, typically with resentment. Usually when somebody mentioned Mark's demise, he assigns blame to you for everything. Nick confessed one evening genuinely believes you destroyed Mark's existence. I anticipated that regarding Linda. I inquired, she's unchanged. Still behaves as if you betrayed them. But confidentially he paused. She and your parent rarely communicate with Mark now. I scoffed, understandably they don't. They always favored the concept of Mark over Mark himself. They desired son they could adore. A perfect offspring who boosted their ego. But instantly he ceased being beneficial. The moment he transformed into liability. They abandoned him as they consistently abandoned me. Required extensive duration to cease looking back, to cease anticipating another communication, another predicament, another treachery. But ultimately the apprehension dissipated and I understood. I was liberated initially in my lifetime. I was unburdened by obligations. I wasn't accountable for rectifying Mark's errors. I wasn't obligated to earn paternal validation. I wasn't burdened with supporting unsupportive family. I spent numerous years believing I had to merit affection, that if I simply provided sufficiently, if I simply exerted enough effort, they would ultimately acknowledge me, ultimately reciprocate my love, but they never would. And presently, I was indifferent. Nick and I remained close, as did some other relatives. Those who had always discerned the falsehoods, yet lacked opportunity to express anything. Before reconnecting former companion, she transcended mere friendship. One day confided her regarding Alex. Regarding everything remained tearless. Not due ceased longing him. But initially, firstly, his remembrance felt unlike injury. Felt like affection. 12 months elapsed. Subsequently 24 months received message Mark. Topic discuss converse. Observed at extended period. Then selected delete, continued living. Concluding thought kinship, not consanguinity. Not responsibility, not loveless sacrifice. Kinship individuals supporting you. Those caring, those present appearing. Finally possessed, that finally had them. That was everything required needed.